All right, your second overrated player on the list here. It's defensive lineman Bryan Bresee out of Clemson. He is, let's see, he's defensive lineman 2 on the consensus board behind Jalen Carter, of course. Number 9 overall on the consensus draft board. By the way, just for everybody listening at home, if you're curious what board we keep referring to, if you just look up NFL mock draft database, there is a consensus board, very easy to use and helpful to look at a lot of these prospects and where the draft community, the zeitgeist, has these guys. It's kind of an aggregate of a lot of different important draft boards. But Bryan Bresee out of Clemson, coming in at 6'5", 300 pounds. You think he's a little bit overrated. Where do you have him on your board?
I have Bryan Bresee. He's my 30th overall player.
Is it Bresee? I've been saying it wrong this whole time.
Yeah, it's Bresee.
It's Bresee. All right. We're making notes. We got to learn as we go here. Bresee.
Yeah, the pronunciation, don't feel bad. It's
how draft season works. You learn as you go. You're going to get them wrong. It's just how it goes.
Yeah. So he's 30th overall, 4th ranked defensive tackle. And this is a player where I think it's a case of like people haven't really caught up and watched the 2022 tape yet, because if you watch, so he's a former number one overall number one overall recruit in the 2020 class, I think. Yeah, 2020 class. 6'5", 300 pounds, comes in as a freshman. Looking at his PFF profile, 81.2 PFF pass rushing grade as a freshman, 26 pressures, 4 sacks. That's huge for a defensive lineman. His second season shortened by injury, but just based on what you saw from those first 2 years and kind of assuming a linear development path, I had Bryan Bresee in the top 10 of my preseason board, and that's kind of the expectations. You expect these players with high recruiting pedigree to continue to develop the way that they have. But his 2022 tape was borderline bad. Like there were games where
I saw a lot of people pretty high on him in that Georgia Tech game early in like September, and then it just went downhill from there.
Right. And so that's the thing, is what I'll say with Bryan Bresee is you're listening and you're someone who is interested in like watching film on these guys. What I would say with Bryan Bresee is you got to watch more than just a couple games, because what I did is I watched week 1, Georgia Tech, like you mentioned, and then the first game that I saw posted for Clemson, I got the UNC conference, the ACC championship game. Those were his 2 best games of the season. So I watched those and I'm like, oh yeah, Bryan Bresee,
right.
top 10. Yeah. He's got these like problems, but great. And then you watch the rest of the games and it's like, wow, I literally like watched the 2 good games of his year. I mean, against
it's the rest of it's trash. Oh, cool.
Against Tennessee, awesome. Like he was getting teleported across the line of scrimmage. He has a real problem with pad level and playing too upright. It's just so easy for offensive linemen to get their hands on him and control the interaction. He's a really flexible player, and so at the college level, especially against lower competition, you'll see him lose with his hands, and then he's like in this upright position. The offensive lineman has great leverage underneath him, but he's able to swim through and still kind of wreck the play. But if you put on your projection cap and try to think about, the NFL instead of, a Wake Forest guard or something, the results are going to be different. The one thing with Bryan Bresee, and I didn't realize this, I was listening to, I forget what podcast, but they were saying like his sister, maybe like 11 years old or something, passed away in September of this year, which is absolutely like that's the definition of a valid excuse to not, develop in that way. I don't really know how to factor that into my analysis, but like that is something that should be mentioned. And yeah, I mean, 24 pressures, 3 sacks on the year. He's someone that I really don't see going in the top 25. And if you look at guys who are plugged in around the league, I'm checking right now. I don't think. Yeah, so Daniel Jeremiah had Bryan Bresee going 30th overall to the Chiefs, and I think Mel Kiper had him falling out of the first round in his most recent mock draft. So, when you look at the signals from people that have NFL sources, it definitely seems like the NFL doesn't have top 10 grades on Bryan Bresee.
Well, and the other thing about him that makes it hard to really consider him in the top 15, top 20 is that he seems to me, at least, and I'm curious if you agree, he seems like he's a purely interior guy. Like from what I've seen, his ability to play in space is really limited. He struggles a lot.
Yeah,
like you wouldn't be able to move this guy around all that often.
I agree at the NFL level, and it's actually interesting with that. Clemson started playing him towards the end of the season. They started playing him at defensive end because he was just getting moved back in the run game on the interior so much. I would say check out the Florida State game. That was kind of the first eye-opening game that I saw for Bryan Bresee. Probably it was the first one that I watched in this most recent film session, and it was like the first bad game of his that I watched. Where he doesn't really put up. He's not great at really setting his feet and dropping his anchor when he's in a double team situation. And I think he'll go probably late first, early second, just because of the traits. I mean, the traits are still there. But I don't know that he has top 10 traits in the sense that if the production was there, he could go in the top 10. But I wouldn't say he has traits where it's like, you've got to have this guy. Even if the production isn't there, it's just like generational traits that you have to bet on. I don't think that's the case.